It seems to be the in thing now to hate on the Westside barbell conjugate system. Every time I open up my comment section, there's someone hating on Louis Simmons, someone hating on Westside, claiming that it doesn't work for raw lifters, that it's gimmicky, that bands and chains don't work, that special exercises don't work, that you should just do the main lift more often. And they like to reference me biased articles that attack Westside or people who are just anti-Westside, period, without giving you another side of the story. So these comments, I'm not gonna lie, they kind of frustrate me because Westside changed my life. The work of Louis Simmons changed my life. And I am very, very grateful for everything that he has done for the strength training community. I think he's a great man, and without him, without his work, I would not be where I am today. So in this video, I want to, first of all, express my gratitude and appreciation for the work of Louis Simmons, for Westside, for what he did. He sacrificed his life for this. And of course, I want to share with you my experiences with implementing some of the philosophies. Now, of course, I've never trained at the Westside gym, nor do I use the Westside barbell conjugate system exactly as written. However, I do implement a lot of the training philosophies into my own training. So I want to share with you how that positively impacted me and ultimately changed my life. So here's the deal, folks. Many times when I upload a full body training video, you'll see me bench pressing with bands. You'll see me doing board press, pin presses, like everything that you're not supposed to do as a raw lifter. And people are going to say, just bench more, just deadlift more. And they make these general statements assuming that I've never done conventional training before. Well, let me give you a little bit of a lesson in history, right? The Alpha Destiny history. The truth is that for years, I used to be anti-Westside. In fact, I was subscribed to several newsletters of these websites that used to bash on Westside constantly. I used to read the biased articles. And basically, I was anti-Westside, anti-Louis Simmons. Even when my friends would try to talk to me in real life, I would say, no, screw you. That doesn't work for raw lifters. It's gimmicks. I mean, I used to be very anti-Westside. If you go back to my older videos, like in 2013, 2014, you'll see this to be true. I used to talk trash about Westside, man. I didn't like the system. I thought it was bullcrap. And of course, back then I was all about doing pause bench. Just do more bench and get better at benching. High frequency. I was literally doing everything that these raw guys like to prescribe. I did all that stuff. I did exclusively free squats, no box squats. I did lots of pause bench, high frequency, everything to a T. I ran percentage-based programs. I did auto-regulation. I used linear periodization. Literally, like the perfect raw program, I ran that. And you know what happened to me? Of course, I made great gains off following these types of systems, but eventually, I reached the greatest plateau of my entire life, the 275 for 5 bench press. And no matter what I did, folks, no matter how much I increased the frequency, no matter whose program I ran, no matter what I did, my raw bench did not increase past 275 for 5. And the same thing for my deadlifts. I wasn't able to go past like 5 plates, man. My deadlift kept budging and budging and budging. And the only thing that was happening in my body was I was experiencing nagging pains, injuries. I was regressing in strength. I was just not making proper gains, man. My work capacity was going to hell from the periodization, constantly riding the roller coaster of volume intensity. And my gains were they were not good. I honestly thought that I'd reach my genetic max in 2014. At the time, I weighed about 173, 176 pounds, in that range, So it's a lot lighter than what I am now. And I wasn't able to make gains anymore, man. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought about quitting. I thought about quitting because this shit was not working anymore. And it's crazy because I had this plateau for like over a year. I was really plateauing hard with the basics. Yet everybody was saying that this was the best way to train at the time. And that Westside was only for geared lifters. Now here's where things get interesting, right? I actually owned the Westside Barbell Book of Methods just to have it. But I never actually studied it to full detail and really examined it and tried to look for the truth because I was always biased in my ways, right? Now, one day, the metro basically had shut down, I believe, and it was a long ride. It was a very long ride. It was going to take me like 1 to 2 hours to get home. And I figured okay, what am I going to do during this time? I had already read all my books because I'm a big reader. I like to read like a book a week type of deal. And the only thing I had on my phone was the Westside Barbell Book of Methods. So I was like, oh, man. Why am I going to read this book about gear and all this crap? I was a bit hesitant in reading it, but I was like, okay, I got nothing better to do. Might as well read it and see where it goes. So I open up the book, I start reading through it. And I'm not even joking. Within the first 20 to 30 pages, I start seeing things from a new lens. I start seeing the light, if you will. I'm reading this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, it makes sense. Everything he's saying makes sense. And I studied it. I listened to what he was saying. And I kept relating it to the anti-Westside articles. And I was like, what I'm reading in this book does not correspond to what I'm reading in these articles. You see what I'm saying? It's similar to how some guys, they go to church, right? And the pastor's going to be preaching something that is not actually supported by the scriptures of the Bible. You know, you have these biased pastors that are just saying all kinds of nonsense. And people are reading the Bible, they're like, okay, but the scripture says this. See what I'm saying? Same thing with this. I was reading the Westside Bible Book of Methods, and it had so much information that went against what these raw guys were saying, and it all made sense. And they were all references. Louis Simmons would constantly reference exercise science textbooks, physics. He gave logical arguments. He debunked the fact that bands don't work for the raw lifter or lifters, period. He gave you precise percentages that you could use for dynamic effort days. He talked about addressing your own individual weaknesses, all of that stuff. And when I read that, my mind was blown. When I got home, I couldn't stop reading this book. I was fixated on it. Like, I just read through the whole goddamn thing in one sitting. And that's rare for me to do. I was absolutely blown away by reading this work. And that's when I knew, like, I had to give the system a shot. So, of course, after that point, I went on the Westside website, okay, and I started reading through all the articles. I read through every single article multiple times. I went on YouTube. I watched every video that I could find about Louis Simmons. I listened to all the interviews with him. I looked at all the podcasts, everything that was available. And that's when I recognized that Westside was, in fact, the truth. And now it was time to do the ultimate test of applying it to my own training. So I got myself some bands, I got some chains even, I got the whole 9 yards. I started implementing the way that Louis Simmons talked about in his book. And guess what? Within a month, not even a month, I smashed through that plateau, smashed through it. And the way that I got there, you guessed it, was by doing band presses. I didn't do any pause bench, I didn't do any of that crap, any of the raw stuff. I was doing reverse band bench. I was doing double bands. I was doing all that stuff, man. And it rose my bench like crazy. I was making the fastest gains of my life. My body was exploding in size. My work capacity was increasing. I was no longer feeling injured, if you will. My muscles were getting bigger. My weaknesses were disappearing. My plateaus were being obliterated. I even made a video called Bands Are Like Steroids because it was revolutionizing my training. And literally, it changed my life. Okay, it changed my life completely because I saw incredible gains, really, really, really good gains. It was PRs after PRs after PRs every single workout, okay? And eventually, I did end up doing, in October of 2015, a 345 raw bench press, right? And I also did a 305 with doubled mini bands. Check this out. Doubled mini bands adds 35 off the chest, 85 out lockout. So if you got 305, that's 340 off the chest, confirmed, 390 at lockout. Now, sometimes when you run the Westside system, you'll find out what testing exercises are. Like some lifts, you know that if you hit for X amount of reps, you know what your raw bench is automatically. These are called tester exercises. Now for me, I know that my raw bench is gonna be 10 to 30 pounds more than my double mini band bench. Because if you can get 340 off your chest and you're locking 390, well, obviously your raw bench has to be somewhere in between, right? And that's, of course, when I started making the claim that I was a 350 plus raw bencher, which I definitely was in 2015, okay? So I got very strong following this type of system. I was doing the dynamic effort days. I was doing the repetition method. I was doing the high rep dumbbells. I didn't do any pause bench, none of that stuff. I mean, occasionally I would do it, but I just ran Westside principles exactly as Louis Simmons prescribed, and my bench skyrocketed. It really, really blew up. And the same thing for my deadlift. Although I never really took it to that level with the squats and deadlifts, I still implemented my own style, and it definitely assisted me greatly, you know? And at the time, also, when I was doing the bench, I was doing like close grip bench, like really close grip to the throat. Like to the throat with the pause and everything for high reps. I was doing JM presses 185 for high reps. All this was on camera as well. So Westside truly revolutionized my training. It really allowed me to make great gains as a raw lifter. And eventually I did like branch off from it because I was no longer focusing on the big three per se. And instead I was starting to focus on the yoke development. And that's when Naturally Enhanced came into existence, you know, where I started doing the cheat rows, the cheat shrugs, the rack pulls above the knee. But I always had a special place in my heart for Westside. So although I do not run the Westside barbell conjugate system, I have nothing but respect for what Louis Simmons has done. And I think that he's one of the greatest strength masterminds of the modern day era. I really believe that his system is probably the best. It actually is the best. In my opinion, it is the best for powerlifting. Whether you're raw or geared, I think that Westside is the best thing you could run. And it really, really changed my life. It worked extremely effective for me. It worked effective for the guys that I knew around me. And I did all the stuff. I made all these gains without having to use drugs. And that was another thing too, right? Guys, they kept saying that Westside only works if you're mega dosing drugs. Well, I didn't find that to be true based off my experience. I found that I got better recovery using those programming parameters compared to linear periodization. Linear periodization, I always felt beat up. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely it got me to very good levels of strength. I never competed in powerlifting, but had I competed, I probably would have done very well. And I have to credit Westside. I have to credit the work of Louis Simmons. I really think that people need to stop bashing on the system and instead respecting what Louis has done. He gave his life for this stuff, okay? And he's not just a powerlifting coach, okay? He's coached Olympic gold medalists, sprinters, MMA fighters, all kinds of different athletes, football players. I mean, he also has different books for athletes. He has a book called Explosive Strength and Development for All Sport. So that's really all I want to talk about in today's video. When someone tries to tell me that Westside doesn't work, or that Westside is a gimmick, or that I should just do this and that and this and that, or they try to criticize what I'm doing, I'm sorry, but their words are nothing compared to the work of Louis Simmons. The word of Louis Simmons is above all. Sorry, a random YouTube comment does not amount to the vast amount of knowledge and experience that Louis has acquired. Louis is above all, period. Louis is above all. You can reference me any Westside hate article. You can give me all the counter arguments. That's not going to mess with my head. You can't take away the belief that I have in the work of Louis Simmons. It's impossible, okay? I can't take any of those comments seriously. I might take other comments seriously when in regards to constructive criticism about other things I might talk about, sure. But when you're referring to the work of Louis Simmons and you're trying to bash the Westside barbell conjugate system, you're never going to win on this one. There's absolutely nothing that you could do to obliterate the belief that I have. Plain and simple. So this is my response to those who keep saying that Westside is ineffective, right? Or people say that it's gimmicky, or that I should just do more pause bench or all this crap, specificity of training. I say give Westside a shot. If you've been hating on it for many years, why don't you actually run the system? Why don't you actually read the books, look at the podcasts, look at the videos, and try it out, because it changed my life for the better. The reverse hypers, I mean, everything. It's a brilliant system. And I'm very grateful that I came across the work of Louis. He's truly an amazing person, and I can't thank him enough, honestly. So that is my testimonial to Westside. Give it a shot, and that's all I have for you today. So wishing you the best of gains. I know it's a different type of video, but I really want to get this off my chest because I don't like the negative mentality that a lot of these guys have against Louis and his work, because they have to respect what he's done. They have to respect the accomplishments of his lifters, everything. So that's just my take on it. Rant over. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me hear your thoughts down below, and I will talk to all of you in the next video. Peace.